Please state your name for the record.
My name is Eli.
And what's your YouTube handle?
It's probably too hard to say or even come out, but it's Petterekkieli. It is not Eli in Icelandic, so Petterekkieli, Petterekkieli.
And what is the source of that idea?
10th grade Instagram. I was like, I gotta be cool. I just haven't changed it since.
Is there like a thing, like a reason for it? Or it's just like...
No, I just wanted to be different. I wanted to be Icelandic, I guess.
So you are going on a trip soon, right?
Indeed, I am, yes.
Yeah? What are you going to do?
In 2023, I am going to attempt, keyword is attempt, to through hike the Appalachian Trail, going from Georgia, going northbound to Maine. It's 2,198 miles.
That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, I guess if you look at it like that. Some people will look at it like a 5-6 month long hike. Probably a little bit easier to look at it like a 3 or 4 day hike. Go into town, refresh, get a shower, eat some real food, and then go back out on the trail for another 3 or 4 days.
I did 7 days of backpacking in New Mexico when I think I was 16 years old. And it was pretty much frozen food the entire time, except for one day when there was a chuck wagon. To this day, I believe that was the most delicious food I've ever eaten. And I don't think it's because it was delicious. I think it probably was good, but I think it was just because I was that hungry.
You know what they call that in the through hiking world? They call that like trail magic or whatever. Like if you're out on the trail for 2 days and you come across a cooler with like Coke in it, you're like, it's like the best thing you've ever had in your life, because you're chugging water and like meal flavored stuff, and it's just all disgusting. And then you see some kind of delicious bakery goods or soda or anything like that, and people like flip over heads for it. It's an amazing experience.
I do intermittent fasting. I do it pretty regularly. Like even when I'm not behaving myself and I'm not fasting, I'm still kind of like waiting till 2 p.m. to eat my dinner or to eat my lunch. And food never tastes better. Like I think like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is like the most amazing thing when you haven't eaten for, when you haven't had a good amount of calories for a couple of days, or if you've been eating frozen food for a week. Just everything tastes so much better.
Yeah, I actually just got off the Foothills Trail, and I was out there for 4 days and 3 nights. And as soon as I got off the trail, on the trail, I was literally just eating ramen. That's all I eat. I don't eat like the North Sides like some other thru hikers do, or I'm not going to spend like $12 on like a dehydrated backpacking meal. I just eat ramen. But yeah, when I got off the trail, my go-to meal is always Wendy's, because for whatever the reason is, like their burgers are unbelievable when I'm done with the hike. It's just absolutely delicious.
Did you say Wendy's?
Wendy's, yeah.
Oh, man.
Baconator.
I've given up on fast food in recent years because my body just can't handle it. But back when I lived in Nashville, I would go to Wendy's and I would get the double cheeseburger, like the good one. Mm-hmm. And
Dave's Double.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what it's called now. But I'd take it home and I'd put A1 sauce on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd get mustard and ranch, and I'd dip the fries in the mustard and ranch, and it was so good. I had to stop because I was starting to gain weight. And I was inspired by this. There was this Russian restaurant down the street in Nashville. It was weird. It was a Russian restaurant, but it was actually serving Italian food. But everything that they served was delicious. And anytime I'd eat there, I'd become addicted to it, and I'd just keep going back and going back and going back. And I started to notice that I was gaining weight. And when you live in Nashville, no, you can't gain weight.
Yeah.
Like everybody down there is like very image conscious, so, which is a good thing, because like you're like, it's good to have other people who care about like their image, because it makes you think about yours and it makes you be healthy. And it's not just
and hold yourself accountable.
Yeah. And it's not just looks either, but it's also like, you want to feel good,
Yeah.
But
look good, feel good.
But really, like when you're backpacking on the Appalachian Trail, and that's one of the most envious things I am about people who do the thru hike, do the whole trail. It's like they're burning so many calories every day.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands, like 5,000 to 6,000 a day.
And I've done little portions of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, really feel like we cheated. Somebody was like, we got to go to the halfway point and eat the gallon of ice cream.
Oh, in Pennsylvania.
Have you heard
Maryland?
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went there and we did like 2 or 3 days worth of hiking, backpacking. And we got to the ice cream store and everybody's like, you going to eat a gallon of ice cream? I'm like, no, I didn't earn this. We've only been hiking for 2 days.
Yeah.
I don't want to undo everything I've done for this last couple of days, you know?
Yeah. When I hit that point, if I hit that point, but hopefully when I hit that point, yeah, I'm kind of lactose intolerant, but I'm not going to not eat the half gallon of ice cream. I made it all that way. It burned literally hundreds of thousands of calories. I'm going to put down a half gallon of mint chocolate chip ice cream. I guarantee you that.
Well, apparently it's part of the tradition. Like you have to, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Are there any other traditions that you've read about?
Trail wise, there's a bunch of towns on the trail. You got like Hot Springs, North Carolina, and that's a trail town. You got Damascus, Virginia. That's where like the trail days of the Appalachian Trail. It's like this like little festival that they do to celebrate past through hikers and then the current through hikers. That's in Virginia. I think there's this place up in Vermont called, I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but it's ran by like a cult. So people go there and eat there. And some people are like, I'm not ever going to eat there, but they let you stay in their place for free. So.
and then they have you drink some Kool-Aid and then you ride the comet back to the promised land.
Yeah, you drink the Kool-Aid and then you go off to this farm and then like you just beat children. That's what they're known for, is heavy discipline on children.
Really, huh? Well, I mean, I guess any port in a storm, right?
Yeah. I'll have to figure out that name here.
Yeah, we can look it up.
It's in Vermont. I believe it's Rutland, Vermont.
Hiker Haven, the 12 tribes.
The 12 tribes, yes. The Yellow Deli. That's what it is, the Yellow Deli. It's in Rutland, Vermont, I believe.
All right, so this is from the trek.co.
Yes, which is the most popular through hiking website. If you're interested in doing any kind of through hike, go to the Trek because they have a bunch of information on through hiking. So
they're all about love, it says.
And beating children.
Well,
and giving
tough love.
Hikers like free nights and really good food too. So I'll tell you what, if I make it to Rutland, Vermont, they're giving me free food, I'm probably going to take that opportunity and stay there for free as well. So
it says, when I asked how this hike was going, Joker told me, I don't know who Joker is. I didn't read well enough. He'd injured his ankle and spent the last month working at the Stony Brook Organic Farm in Hillsboro, West Virginia, run by a religious group known as the 12 Tribes. The group is well known among AT hikers for offering cheap or even free lodging at the farm, and its hostel in Rutland, Vermont.
Yes.
And for the food at its Yellow Deli restaurant.
Yep, Yellow Deli. And everybody wear their long skirts too.
It was such an amazing experience, Joker said, dreamingly. He hesitated a moment before adding, they're just all about love.
Yes. I'm taking a free food and I'm taking a cheap or free stay. I'm sorry to all the other people out there that are not going to do that.
And you can beat some children while you're there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another perk to it, I guess.
It's like an adventure farm. Try things you've never done before.
Here, plant some corn. Here. Learn how to bake bread. Here. Beat a child.
There was a podcast a few years ago about it was like a 9-episode podcast about like the cult that tried to jump on Hale Bopp. Do you remember that?
Jump on what?
There was a comet called Hale Bopp. And this cult, they wanted to ride Hale Bopp away.
Yeah.
Like the comet to the promised land or wherever it was going. And I'm really disappointed that I missed out on that because I didn't hear about it until afterwards. So I'm going to have to wait another 107 years or however long it takes.
Yeah, that was in the 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to make it.
Man.
It was actually a really, really good podcast. But there was one episode that got way too graphic about some of the things they did in that cult. And it's like, okay, this would be a really good podcast if we just skipped that one episode. But like these people were like all on board. They were just like, everybody was just willing to give their life away to jump on board the comet. And, you know, I have you ever heard the term drink the Kool-Aid?
Oh yeah. Jonestown, baby.
Oh yeah. So you know the story.
Yes.
One of my favorite podcasts is Duncan Trussell.
Oh yeah.
You know
He's
that
great.
is?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever
for
heard
sure.
the song? Welcome, welcome all of you.
Yep.
That song?
Mm-hmm.
That song was actually recorded by the little kids who were in the Drink the Kool-Aid cult.
Oh man. So sad to
So,
hear.
so all of those kids that are singing in that intro to the Duncan Trussell podcast, they're all dead. I don't know how old they'd be now. They're
What a
probably-
goat, Duncan Trussell.
He's funny. Back when he was in LA, like he had live guests all the time. Now he does it through online. That kind of became the thing in 2020. Like I'm a huge fan of like this. Like we're in person right now. You know, it's kind of cool to have in person. I actually did one recently with a alternative Mormon guy who left the Mormon church, which is ironic, right?
Yeah.
Which we're not going to tell why that's ironic. I may be moving to Utah. Anyways, besides the point. You know, he had such good quality sound on his side, and I had such good quality sound on my side, and it took a while to figure out how to do that. Like he already knew how to do it. I was figuring it out myself. And between the fact that he had good quality sound on his end, and I had mine, and editing, you know, because when you're doing an interview like online, it takes a minute. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
You kind of talk over each other, which is ridiculous, and then it's just not normally
not the
that
same.
great. Like the first one I did was on Google.
Oh man.
Google Meet. And I didn't realize that was a bad idea. It was a horrible idea. The guy I did the interview with, Shotgun Mike Kesteller, he was good. He was really good. And I think he had stuff figured out on his end. I just didn't on my end. So while it was a really entertaining podcast, it could have been better if I had my stuff together. But nevertheless, that's how I kind of feel about podcasts in general. It's like, I remember when the pandemic hit a few years ago, a lot of the podcasts that I love, they started doing it online. And I just didn't really enjoy it as much anymore because they didn't have that like in-person chemistry, that vibe that you get from a good conversation. Like when you're doing it online, you're like waiting and you're trying not to talk over each other. And it's just kind of difficult. It's not the same vibe. So a lot of the podcasts that I really enjoyed back then, I just don't anymore as much. And I think Duncan Trussell is one of the ones that kind of fell under that category. I still like him. I still like the dude. It's just I think the podcast was better at one point.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of podcasts were better. I think we
Fuck
talked.
Google.
I learned to use Zencaster, which was pretty great. I might be getting too technical here. We'll edit this out later if it is not interesting to everybody. But let's see, what were we talking about before we got into that?
We were talking about like trail traditions, and then we went into the 12 tribes, Yellow Deli.
Do you know of any other traditions there on the trail?
Honestly, I haven't done too much research on like the traditions and all that stuff. I kind of want to have it be a surprise and have it come as it comes, and I take that experience when it happens, and I'm not looking forward to it, and then I'm kind of present in the moment and enjoy it right then and there.
That's interesting because like when I moved to where we are now, like you came to visit me here in Florida, and I never researched this town before I moved here. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to see all the pictures online. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I got here, I just wanted to experience it for the first time. And I think that's something that's lost when you research something too much. If you research something, it's like, oh, I've seen the photos. Oh, I saw this on Google. You know, it's like, no, I don't want to know.
Yeah. And there's a beauty in like literally just experiencing it yourself for the first time and not seeing it. I know like a lot of hikers will follow like YouTube channels and stuff, and YouTube is a massive thing for like through hiking nowadays. And there's so many people out there that will watch daily vlogs who are not on the trail, and the vloggers are literally like taking videos of themselves and then taking videos of the nature. There's so many like landmarks that you come across, and they're already like, hey, look, here's McAfee Knob, or here's the Virginia Triple Crown, or here's Mount Washington. And you get to those points if you're watching all those videos and you're watching them every year and you're like, oh, I've seen this like 12 times and I just don't want to experience it 12 times. I want to experience it in the moment. And have it hit me right then and there.
I guess the counterpoint to that would be like, you need to know what you're doing if you're going to do something like that, right? Like you don't want to be surprised if you're out on the trail for how many months is it going to be?
I want to say 5. I would like to do it in 4. I'm the kind of hiker who likes to hike as long as I can every day, especially on this past trail that I did on the Foothills Trail in South Carolina, which highly recommend. It's an awesome trail. I realized on that trip that I like to hike by myself. I like to challenge myself every day, and I like to hike big miles and kind of just get to camp, relax, and then do the same thing the next day. I'm not really a social hiker, or I'll just put in my headphones and just go. So I would like to get it done in 4 months because it'd be a challenge for me. And also financially, the difference between 4 months and 5 months is anywhere from $800 to $1,500. So
let's talk about the cost.
Yeah.
How do you break that down?
Well, it just depends. You've got hikers who want to go into town every 2 to 3 days, get good food, get a shower, get a hotel, do all that. And if you add all that up right now in 2023 with inflation, you're looking at probably around $1,200 to $1,400 per month. That's what you want to average. Now you can kind of go a little bit more luxurious on that side. You can also go on the other end of that side and do it pretty frugally on the trail. And I like to be right there in the middle. So I'm thinking about $1,000 to $1,200 per month on the trail.
When I've talked to guys on the trail, like when we were doing like day trips or whatever, they were basically like, we were doing day trips, but they were doing like the whole thing. And some of the things that they talked about was like, the first few days you start thinking, oh, this is horrible. This is a lot of work. And then like you reach this point where it's like, oh, this is just what I do every day.
This is my job. Yeah.
At first for them, it seems like going, 10, 15, 13 miles is a big deal. But then like after like maybe a week or two, they're just like, okay, this is what I do. I wake up and I walk 20 miles, and it's like almost like a challenge to see how much more I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I remember one of those guys saying was that eventually you get tired of the storms.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't take it anymore. And at some point, like no matter how good you are at it, it's like you got to get a hotel for a night. Like, a big storm's coming in, and it's just like, I can't, I don't want to be in a tent for this night when this gigantic thunderstorm comes through. I need a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I guess, I was actually, for some reason, like just irrelevant to you and I talking about this, was on a Reddit thread the other day, and somebody was talking about, oh, you can do it. It's a lot cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think they're factoring in the fact that sometimes gigantic storms come through.
Or you could twist your ankle on a rock, there's just so many unplanned expenses that you got to plan for. Whether you spend that money or not, it's way better, and you're going to be way more successful if you plan for that twisted ankle that you have to stay in town in a hotel or a hostel for maybe 5 to 7 days to recover from that. And then you got to pay for your urgent care visit, and you got to do all that.
Yeah.
So they don't take into account for that stuff either. Like, oh yeah, I just ate ramen every day. I did it $200 per month. And it's like, congratulations. How far did you get?
So this is the before podcast. We're going to have to do it after podcast after you're done. Yeah. So I think it'll be like a complete different story, right?
Hopefully that'd be nice. Maybe I'll have a beard at that point too. God, that'd be everything to me.
I can't grow a beard. It makes me mad. I just get peach fuzz. I just get like scraggly.
Yeah, that's like my biggest insecurity is like my whiskers, I guess is what you would want to call them. But I'm not going to shave it all out on the trail, my face, and goodness, hopefully I'd have a beard at that point. That will be everything to me. I don't care if I hike almost 2,200 miles. If I were to grow a beard, that would be the biggest accomplishment. I
think when we did that halfway point,
mm-hmm.
we met this thru hiker on the trail, and he had this guitar on in his pack, and it was like a straight guitar. Like there was no body to it.
Mm-hmm.
It was still acoustic, but it was just like a lot quieter than you would think of a regular guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed really annoyed with me because I played guitar a lot better than him. He's like, give me my guitar back.
Yeah. Yeah, he's probably the guy like, yeah, I can play Wonderwall for you.
Yeah, you and I just went to a bar tonight. And he's like, has he played Wonderwall yet? And it took about maybe a half hour.
Yeah, it was at least 4 songs in, and I started hearing that off chord word. I don't even know what it is. I'm not into music much anymore, but yeah, you would know the chords if you heard them.
Yeah. It was a good song though. Just some things get overplayed.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because Oasis is personally my favorite 90s band ever.
I remember looking at a top bands of all time from the British perspective, and Oasis was up there with the Beatles.
Oh, they should be. I mean, obviously they're not as great as the Beatles. I'm not going to say that, but
yeah. Well, the problem was that Oasis thought they were as good as the Beatles.
Yeah, the Gallaghers for sure.
Yeah.
No, the What's the Story Morning Glory album is freaking phenomenal. Even the deluxe version, there's just so many 10 out of 10 songs on that album, and people talk about 90s bands and no one ever gives Oasis love, and I'm going to give Oasis some love here.
Yeah, I don't think Americans love it as much as the Brits do.
Yeah.
I recently made a 90s playlist on Spotify, but it's full of all my old favorite 90s. And I had to I'm old enough to I've lived through the 90s, and but I had to go back and kind of remember some stuff. I actually went to online forums and asked, hey, help me try to remember some of my favorite 90s songs. And one person suggested Babes in Toyland, Hansel and Gretel. And if you've
wow.
Do you know that one?
I know the band, but I don't know the song.
It's horrible and it's amazing at the same time. She just swears the entire time, and she goes, Handsome Gretel, handsome Gretel. And it's simultaneously horrible and amazing at the same time. That's the only way I can describe it. Any other 90s music that you like?
I love Hootie and the Blowfish, Cracked Rear View. That's another underrated album. Everything else from Hootie and the Blowfish and Darius Rucker sucks, but that album is very good. Obviously, Nirvana. I think they're up there for one of the most genre-defying bands of all time.
What do you like from now, in recent years, 10 years, maybe?
For sure, my favorite band of all time is Tame Impala. Anything from the Western Australian psychedelic world, you got Tame Impala, you got the band Pond, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, the psychedelic music that's come out of Australia, and more specifically Western Australia, the past 10 years has been super revolutionary, and I love a lot of that. I like to listen to an artist named Sam Fender. Maybe you've noticed by now, but I do love my Brit pop and my Brit rock and roll. Sam Fender is from the UK, and you can definitely hear it in his voice that he's from the UK. So 1975, another British band. I listen to literally everything except for country. So
I don't know if you watch any British TV.
Not too much. I've seen the British Office, and it was enough for me to be this is completely different from the regular Office.
I recently listened to a theory about what the difference is between American comedy and British comedy. And one of the big things was, I wish I had the guy's name in front of me. I'll look it up later. But he said the difference between American comedy and British comedy is that in American comedy, you want to look down upon others. And he used an example of Animal House. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
Where the guy had a guitar, a hippie was playing guitar.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And was it Belushi? Took the guitar from his hands and smashed it.
Yep.
And he said, in American comedy, you want to be Belushi. In British comedy, you want to be the guy playing the guitar. I need to look that up. Let me look it up real quick.
The name of the guy?
Yeah. Who said? I don't want to steal someone else's stuff. You know what? I'll look it up later and I'll add it at the end. Whoever that guy was who said that. I'm not even sure where I saw it, so I'll figure it out. And I'll say it at the end of the podcast. But yeah, so the thing about British comedy, apparently, is that they like being the loser, right? They know they know their place in the world. And this guy's point was that in American comedy, when you go to a bookstore in the United States, you see a bunch of self-help stuff like where, okay, I can be this, I can become this. But in Britain, you know your place.
Yeah.
And like you almost like kind of find delight in kind of being the loser almost.
I kind of relate with that too because
I do too.
because I mean, I do like my self-help books every once in a while. Like there's some books that have like really helped me think differently. And I really want to be able to think differently without reading those. But yeah, sometimes that American attitude can be pretty egotistical and all that kind of stuff. And you just got to realize where you're at in life and where you're at in general, and just realize like, oh, maybe I'm not everything that this self-help book or America in general is making a person who's successful to be, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, I think it just gives a lot of false hope sometimes. You know, it's like, all right, you want to be a supermodel? Just okay. I mean, there's a lot of like simple math equations to be attractive, like burn more calories than you consume, you know, that type of stuff. You know, like what you were saying earlier, like look good, feel good type of thing. A lot of people just want to find alternative methods to become, I don't know.
They want to take the shortcut.
Right. And I think that's kind of the American.
It's always been the American way.
But it doesn't work. It doesn't always work, you know? It doesn't. It probably doesn't ever work.
The beauty is that sounds so self-help bookish. I sound like a self-help Sam, but I mean, the beauty is in the journey itself, you know? I mean, if we put it to like maybe like a through hiking perspective, whether it's the Appalachian Trail or some other long distance trail, if you kind of cheated the system and you hiked three days and then you took a car ride and you went up a state and then you got back on the trail and you're like, hey, like I'm doing this, and then you do it for another 3 or 4 days and you go up, and it's not going to be the same experience. And you might be portraying that like, hey, like, look, I'm this, I'm that, but, and you can say that you're a through hiker or whatever, that really doesn't bother me, but the beauty in is the journey, you know, like you remember where you were on this day, you remember how this state was. And if you're not doing it day by day, mile by mile, step by step.
So you're starting in Georgia, right?
Yes.
Do you know where that is?
Yeah. So it's a mountain called Springer Mountain. I do not know the town, but it is in Amicalola State Park. It's like a big ass waterfall. And then there's like an approach trail that goes up to the top of Springer Mountain, and then you go north from there.
Is that kind of close to Atlanta?
I would say it's probably about an hour and a half north of Atlanta.
That's pretty. Oh, north.
Yeah, I think you're only hiking in Georgia for about 70 miles. Miles is probably like 30 miles in general.
So how many miles do you plan to do a day? A day, yeah. Actually.
I'm gonna start off with a earnest 10 miles per day, and then kind of see where my legs take me from there. I would like to get to a point where maybe I'm doing 20 to 23 miles per day. Especially at some point, I will get what they call like trail legs, and I'll be very used to walking, and I could probably do bigger mile days. But on average, I would like to do around 19 to 22 miles per day.
I think what happens like the first few days, you're probably like, oh, cool, I'm camping. You know,
yeah.
I'm hiking. It's nice to be out in the wilderness. And after some certain point, you're just like, okay, well, there's only so much time I want to spend at camp.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I can get through a lot more. And I mean, because what are you going to do when you get to camp? Yeah. I mean, unless you meet some really interesting people. This is the thing that I've always thought about when I went backpacking. You get to camp, you get there early. It's still light, like it's 3 p.m. or something like that, which would be easy to do. Let's say you started at 7 a.m. And what do people do? 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour?
Yeah, I would say probably on average on the Appalachian Trail, it's probably around 2 miles per hour, I'd say.
All right, so let's say 2 miles per hour times, and let's say you start at 7 a.m.
Yes.
So you go 5 hours, that's 10 miles.
Yeah, so 12 o'clock, you've hit 10 miles.
You're at camp by noon. What the fuck do you do with the rest of the day? You know what I mean?
Yeah, people are taking breaks or, really whatever it is. You know, I think probably my biggest hiking hot take is I hate when people say you got to stop and smell the roses, because at some point you're just walking, you know, and like when I was out on the Foothills Trail, I'll say it a million times, the Foothills Trail is a great trail, but like there was lots of routes. There were some beautiful views, but most of the time you're hiking through like trees and stuff and there's not anything. So like, I mean, really, what am I stopping and smelling like roses? Like I'm just looking at brushes and trees. And I mean, at some point you just got to like be like, all right, like I want to hit 25 miles today. And I think that's the challenge for myself. Everybody has a different motive of going out there. Mine is to challenge myself.
I think it's going to become easier and easier as you go along.
Yeah.
Unless like there's some sort of injury or something, you know.
Yeah.
Like how do you predict that though, right?
And you can't control it either.
Yeah. I was recently listening to a podcast called, I don't remember the name of the podcast, but it was Holly Horton was the name of the host.
I'm not sure of that one.
She interviewed some dude who was on some Pacific
Crest Trail?
I don't know the specific one, but it was out west.
Mm-hmm.
And he said he came up on some woman who was using her phone, her cell phone as her map.
Gut hook or far out is what
and
they
she
call
dropped it.
And
And it shattered.
Oh no.
And she had no way to get home because like
crazy.
that was her only source of how to get home. So I guess you really have to have a backup plan for everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, with technology, it really helps a lot. Probably the app that lady was on was a app called Far Out, which used to be called Gut Hook. And it's a really helpful app. You know, I used it on my Foothills Trail. I've already pre-downloaded and bought the Appalachian Trail one. And it tells you where water sources are. It tells you like up to date, like minute by minute, if the water source is like flowing really well. It'll tell you where there's a bridge. It'll give you all these landmarks to look for. That way you can kind of gauge where you're at on your hike. But also at the same time, you do have to have some sort of physical copy in case you drop your phone or in case whatever, you know, you have to have a backup plan for everything. You can't just assume that your phone's going to take you the whole way because, if it does, like, good job. But, there's just going to be times where you're going to have to use a paper map.
What are your biggest concerns?
Snakes. I hate snakes. But, other than that,
you sound like Indiana Jones. He hates snakes too.
Oh, snakes are awful. Like, and that's another thing is like if I'm stopping and smelling the roses and I'm not like looking down at the ground, you know, like I could step on a rattlesnake and that terrifies the shit out of me.
The times I've encountered snakes that scared me were minimal in my entire life. As much time as I've spent, like, you know, I haven't been out west where like in Arizona where there was probably actually dangerous. Like we're both from Ohio. There's not really a lot of dangerous snakes in Ohio, but
in my head, a gardener snake is the same as like a rattlesnake. I don't know the difference. And like they both like, I feel like, okay, I'm going to die if this thing touches me.
Yeah. There was one time where I saw like a snake, like right across the trail. Like he was taking up the entire thing. So I was like, holy crap. What is that? It was rare. That it was like in Ohio. I think that was like near Cleveland somewhere. You know, it's not like anacondas.
No. That's probably some sort of like rat snake or something. But look, in my eyes, they're all like venomous and going to kill me. But if there's any other thing that worries me, you know, definitely like financially, I've definitely saved up quite a bit. So I'm not necessarily worried about that. But also, I've just always worried about the financial part of it, you know, because when I come home, I want to make sure that I have a good enough pocket to where I don't have to feel like I have to jump into another job. And maybe I can kind of sit there and be like, and soak in what happened, you know, and not jump back into real life because the life that's on trail is completely different than the life that's outside of trail. And I've really done my due diligence on like learning how to kind of cope with coming off trail. But yeah, financially is probably another one just because you never control if you freaking break your ankle or something or you twist your ankle and you have to spend upwards of $1,000 or whatever on medical or whatever. So
you worked a job for a long time before this, right?
Yes.
And you just decided, I'm done?
Yes.
That's pretty brave, right?
Yeah.
Did you build up a savings during that time?
Yeah. I was a retail manager of like a big box store and I was paid pretty graciously via bonuses and stuff. So that helped me out a ton. I'm not going to sit here and say that I ate ramen every day. I was very grateful and lucky to have had a couple bonuses here in the last couple months that really jump started me to the point of like really not having to worry about it. But also at the same time, I did save up about $4,000 to $5,000 myself in 2023 in the year of high inflation. So pretty proud of that.
What did they say when you told them you were leaving?
How many weeks will it be?
Because they want you back.
Yeah, they had no idea what the Appalachian Trail was. I was so fucking nervous. Like in my head, like I'm just the kind of guy who wants to go into work hard. I'm not like there to have, I'm just a very hard worker. And the last thing I want to do is like let my bosses down. And
right.
And you know, that can probably be a negative thing too, because do they really care about you?
Right.
I mean, who really knows? But
yeah.
in my heart, I'm a hard worker and I didn't want to let him down. And so I'm like, hey, can we talk about something personal real quick? Cause I'm like shaking in my boots. Go up to our like little conference room and I'm like, and he's probably thinking like, oh, this guy's going to go to a different store. And it's like, no, I'm going to quit my job and hike the Appalachian Trail. And he's like, yeah, so how many weeks is that going to be? And I'm like, yeah, it's going to be about 5 months, bud.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to fill out an LOA. And I'm like, nah, I'm going to put in my notice.
Are you going to go back?
I don't know. I don't know where my mindset's going to be. I'm very appreciative of that job and the opportunities that it's given me. I could not see myself as a store manager ever again.
One thing that I've thought about, like when I go on vacation for like maybe more than 3 days, you know, I reevaluate life. And it's like, oh, anytime I get into this amazing experience, I think, oh, I've been mismanaging life completely. But then like there's this thought, when I go back, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. But then you get back into the routine and it's like, oh, I'm getting slowly sucked back into it.
Yeah, especially in like the environment that I was in. In the end, I was overseeing around 180 people. So, I mean, as great of a manager as I thought that I was, at the end of the day, if someone doesn't want to work hard, I don't think me going and pushing out freight's going to make them like change their work ethic on anything. So
you don't think like your work ethic is going to change other people who are lazy?
No, honestly. I mean, a lot of the people that I was managing were above 25, you know, so they're probably already stuck in their ways and who they are as a worker, maybe. And, you know, before I was a store manager, I was actually like a department manager. And that's where I like noticed results, you know. I was like, I noticed that my team was really connected. And I was like, holy shit, like I love doing this. I'm seeing results. My team's working really well. But I was overseeing like 9 or 10 people instead of 180. So I think with that drastic amount of change in the people I was managing, I just think that it's impossible to change everybody's work ethic.
Were you a manager in 2020?
I was an assistant manager.
Did you notice a work ethic change during that time?
Yeah.
What changed?
I mean, everything. Like, I know that's a broad answer, but everything changed. I mean, all of a sudden we were able to like have excuses, you know? And I mean, even at my job, like if we didn't feel comfortable, and I put that in quotation marks or air quotations, whatever you want to call them, if we didn't feel comfortable, like we didn't have to do it, you know? And I think that having that leeway kind of really kind of messed up a lot of people's like work ethics and hard work in general. You know, if you didn't want to touch money because you felt like you were going to get COVID, you didn't have to touch money. They would find somewhere else for you. Even at the beginning of COVID, like if you didn't feel comfortable being at work, like you were granted a leave of absence just like that, which I'm not saying you shouldn't have done that by any means, like if you don't feel comfortable or whatever. But I think just that whole change of life that happened to everybody, it definitely affected work ethic in at least my workplace, but probably a lot of other retail workplaces as well.
So with younger generations who grew up in this environment,
Yeah.
do you think that will change their work ethic? Like as they get older and
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. Yes, but that's probably a pre-COVID thing. Like,
no, it wasn't because of COVID.
COVID like boosted it,
exacerbated
but,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably just in general, just the stage of work now is kind of you treat me and I come in and just work, basically.
We rely on companies to give us money, like as employees, right? There aren't very many entrepreneurs anymore, right? I mean, I think if you went back to maybe the 1800s or the 1900s, you would probably find a lot more entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
But in 2023, there's a corporate structure. I'm not sure if it's the people's fault or the government's fault. I don't know. Like, it's probably a little bit of both, where we rely on big whatever to give us money. And then we're angry with them when we are unhappy with them. But we couldn't do that on our own. Like, we're not entrepreneurs. Like, okay, so I want to make money. How do I do it? We don't go out and do it on our own. Actually, we interviewed a friend on the Cleveland podcast, which was the podcast before this one. His name is Ariel. He found this place where it's like, and as we were interviewing him, he's like, I make signs for people. And I'm like, well, do you create the signs? He's like, no. I'm like, well, do you design the signs? He's like, no. I'm like, well, what do you do? He's like, well, people need signs. And I find somebody who makes them.
Oh, he's the middleman.
And I find people who create them.
Yeah.
And I have them all work together. And then I sell them to the people who need signs. And it was like the most basic concept I've ever heard of. But I didn't know there was a need for this. You know? How does that happen? Like, how does somebody think of that? I don't think there's very many people who think of that kind of thing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be put in like a specific scenario to be like, boom, light bulb. No one's doing this. That probably happened to him. I know that I just listened to a podcast recently called Trail Tales, and one of the latest episodes was this episode with, I don't know her name. I think her name's like Morgan something. But she is this physical trainer, and she is like through hike the Pacific Crest Trail. And if you go out on the trail and you have like an injury and you go into town, like these doctors and urgent care doctors, they're not familiar with like through hiking. So when you say like, what's wrong? What's the pain? Oh, something's wrong with my foot, blah, blah, blah. They have no idea about like through hiking. And they're like, well, maybe you should just like get off the trail, you know, just like the most generic answer because they don't really know what's going on. And so this chick actually like got her like degree and is now like on the Pacific Crest Trail doing like telehealth appointments with people on all different trails and helping hikers who are feeling like pain and like literally anywhere. And instead of having like the generic, maybe you should get off the trail, she's like saying, oh, maybe like do this and push this bone in a little bit or whatever. And that's like another scenario was like, why did no one fucking think of this?
Yeah.
And boom, like she's the only one that's doing it. But I mean, there's a need for it because she's doing really good at it financially.
You may not know this about me, but I'm kind of a weird dude. I believe in a lot of like things like massage and meditation and things like that. It completely changes your existence. You know what I mean? I'm a super hyper dude, right? And I've always got like millions of thoughts that go running through my head. So, and one of the really cool things, I recently took a job that was like 11 to 7. And I thought, I'm going to be miserable. I've always worked 9 to 5, you know?
Yeah.
Or some version of it. I'm like, I don't want to work through my evenings, you know? But I find myself waking up early in the mornings, which I never thought I would do on a 11 to 7 schedule, right? And I found myself waking up and going to the gym and meditating. And by the time I get to work, it's like, boom.
Yeah.
the world is good. You know,
and this cloud is like lifted off your chest.
Right. When I lived in like Cleveland, when the last place I lived, you know, And it's just like, oh, chaos when I woke up in the morning. It's like, oh, I got to get to work. I got to run there. It's like, oh boy. And then that vibe stuck with me throughout the day. And I was like, it's not healthy, you know, that chaos in the morning of trying to get to work on time. And I guess like
for the past like year and a half in my old time, or not year and a half, that's how long I was a store manager. But for like the past like year, I voluntarily closed every night because I knew that I would wake up at 7 every day. I would work out. When I had my dog, I'd walk him. I'd do all this stuff in the morning, and I would be so much more productive working a 12 to 9 than I was working a 5 to 2, which was the morning shift, or even like a mid shift. I was like, man, closing sucks. But eventually I was just like, I'm doing all this stuff, and it just became so routine, and mentally and physically, I was the healthiest I'd ever been.
Probably you're going to get a lot healthier pretty soon.
I don't know. Honestly, you know, you're putting so much pressure on like your legs and your joints and all that good stuff. And you're eating like shit. Like I cannot stress to you, you're not out there eating steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
You're eating ramen. You're eating Cliff bars. You're eating a shit ton of Snickers bars. Like, I mean, you're not on like a normal diet, you know, because you are burning thousands upon thousands of calories a day. You can't just have a steak and potato dinner, but like you have to fill up with calories. And sometimes the only way to do that is with unhealthy candy bars and all that good stuff. So diet wise, I am not going to be healthy.
Here's my experience. I don't think it matters. Mm-hmm. If you're burning calories every day,
it doesn't matter.
No,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter what you eat. If you're burning 4,000 calories a day, you could be eating lard from a bucket.
Yeah. You just need calories at that point.
Yeah.
Wherever it comes from, whether it's a Snickers bar or bacon fat, or I mean, literally whatever it is, I don't think anything's going to like make you fat when you're burning 5,000 calories a day.
So like when you're young, you just, you burn calories. Like you can eat bacon and double cheeseburgers and all that stuff all day long, and your body just like burns it off. And like, I don't know, maybe like in your mid 20s, late 20s, I don't know what it is. And the older you get, the more you have to adjust. And then, like, you know, you can kind of out exercise it, or you can, or you can try to change your diet.
Yeah.
I mean, there's two options there.
I've never really been the change my diet kind of person. I just kind of watch how much I eat and when I eat during the day.
Yeah, you might have to change that at some point.
I got a little, I got a little bit big in my early 20s, and then I lost all that weight, and I haven't like gone on some kind of like miracle diet or anything like Atkins or anything like that, but just definitely watch what I've eaten, worked out as much as I can. I've been pretty adamant on my workouts. So
when you're hungry, like as we talked about earlier, you'll eat things that you wouldn't otherwise, like grapes. Like I always pack grapes in my lunch. Like I think it's the number one thing that I waste because it's always like the last thing that I eat.
Yeah.
if I'm not fasting.
Yeah.
But if I'm fasting, it's like the first thing.
Really?
It's like, oh, I want this so bad. It was so good. But if you're not fasting, if you don't have that hunger, you don't want it as much. If you have the choice between a double cheeseburger and grapes, you want the double cheeseburger.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the choice, you want the grapes.
Yeah.
They're so good.
Huh.
But if you have the choice between the double cheeseburger and the grapes taste terrible.
Yeah.
It's awful.
For sure.
Yeah.
I've never really thought of it like that. Like if you're fasting and you literally just pack grapes, you're like, God, I'm so looking forward to those grapes.
Yeah. Like if you're fasting like I do, like at 2 p.m. every day, like that's when I eat. I fast for 20 hours a day, and then I eat for 4 hours. When 2 p.m. rolls around, is like the most amazing time in my life.
Really?
Every day. It's like Christmas every freaking day.
Man. How many meals are you eating in that 4 hour period?
Probably about 2,000 calories.
2,000 calories.
But honestly, recently, like when I'm really doing it well, I eat the majority of it in the first 20 minutes.
Really?
Yeah. It's like, go. Have you ever seen Cookie Monster?
Yeah. What are some of the foods that you're eating now on your fasting diet or whatever it is?
Well,
Grapes?
Well, actually, I eat some unhealthy things too.
Yeah.
Grapes are like the most interesting thing because they're like on that border of what I want. Like if I'm not fasting, it's like, oh, I could waste it. And it's bad because, especially here in Florida, grapes are expensive.
Yeah.
And it's like when I waste them, I'm furious with myself.
Yeah.
And so that's like the thing I talk about the most, you know. But no, I eat like egg salad sandwich and a tuna sandwich, or maybe like a tuna wrap, or maybe a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know, like those are like kind of some of the higher calorie stuff. And then I'll eat just like some sugary things like a granola bar or a Rice Krispie treat. But then I eat like apples, pickles. Pickles have no calories. Did you know that?
I didn't, but I hate pickles, so.
So it doesn't matter. And I'll...
No calories, really.
Isn't that weird?
That's crazy.
How can a food have no calories? But it makes me like happy.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever.
I'd rather drink water.
I think it's pretty much basically the same thing. Except that pickles have vinegar or whatever.
Salt.
Yeah.
Yuck.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like a bunch of that stuff. Like it's a mix of healthy and unhealthy and sugary and like natural. And but
do you find that like when you've done your fast and 2:00 comes around, that when you eat you get full just as fast?
No.
Not
if I'm doing it right.
Okay.
No, I
didn't know if like you could eat like an egg salad sandwich and grapes and a granola bar and be like, man, I'm full, or like it takes a lot more to make you full.
It takes 2,000 calories.
That's
like,
crazy.
Well, no, maybe like 1,500 probably, because I save like 500 for the end.
Yeah.
Of that 4 hours. So.
But you feel so much energy throughout the morning, don't you?
It's weird.
Yeah.
You would think that you would feel bad.
Yeah. Nope.
But I don't.
Yeah. There was some Joe Rogan episode where they were talking about fasting and just how like it like breaks down in the morning and like it's literally like eating away like the good things it's supposed to eat away that's giving you energy inside your body, and that blew my mind. I've never been someone who really fasted, but I've always been interested in doing it myself. But obviously I'm on a different trajectory now. I'm not really focused on fasting. So.
Well, like if you're going to be burning 4,000 calories a day, it's probably not going to matter.
Yeah.
But I recently listened to the Dark Horse podcast, which like most people hate. So I'm not going to like dwell on where I found it from. But Brett Weinstein was talking about how fasting makes you think that you're not hungry even though you are, which is like he was trying to make a greater point, which I don't really even care to address the greater point that he was trying to make. But he was talking about how fasting makes you think that you are not hungry even though you are.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, but are you hungry or are you not? That was his point. Hey, let's take a break real quick.
Okay. Let's just restart and do an outline. Because you had the questions and we just kind of bullshitting. Because we haven't seen each other in years, so.
All right, we took a little break there and I spilled a whole bunch of
Sprite Zero.
Sprite Zero all over the floor.
We're soaked in Sprite Zero.
Yeah, everything is horrible. I don't know how it happened. How did that happen? Did I just pull it out and it like fell?
You put it on the piano bench cushion and it just didn't have the stability to hold it. A full 2 gallon or a 1 gallon thing of or is that a gallon? Yeah, a gallon of Sprite.
2 liter.
2 liter.
And it just kind of exploded all over the place. Ridiculous. Anyways, so you came down here and you've kind of been on like on a 2-week vacation?
This
so far?
Yeah, my vacation started on Saturday. So
Oh, so not too long.
no. Yeah, just a little bit less than a week.
Where did you go on the way down?
Yep, I stopped on the Foothills Trail in South Carolina, a little bit of North Carolina, and did that as like a shakedown hike in preparation for the Appalachian Trail, just making sure that my gear was okay and that I wanted to be out there for more than 3 to 4 days, which the longest trip I'd ever done up to this point is 3 nights. So I accomplished everything that I wanted to, still wanted to be out there. And then I came down here because I've said before, like the Appalachian Trail isn't going to be like a vacation or anything. So
yeah,
I wanted to come down to Florida, relax, go to a state that I haven't been to very much and just kind of explore a little bit new things, and yeah, just do that and then head up home to Ohio for a little bit and then get ready to prepare for the trail.
Where did you go in Florida so far?
I'm a huge disc golfer, so the first thing I did when I came down here was visit a couple disc golf courses. I went to a place called Four Palms in North Jacksonville, and then I went to another place outside St. Augustine. I forget the name of that course, but they're both pretty good.
What are your favorite disc golf courses, like, that you've been to ever?
I'm pretty biased. I'd say my favorite course is Sawyer Ludwig in my hometown of Marion, Ohio, just because every time I go there, like I try to get the score, and it's so challenging. The pars there are so difficult. Some like pretty good ones I played. There's a course in West Virginia that was about 25 minutes away, depending on school traffic, called Hurricane. Don't call it Hurricane. Hurricane, and that was the best course in West Virginia on like a disc golf app. That was a really good course. And then I also played a course in Kentucky called Idlewild that's on the Pro Tour, and that course is like freaking phenomenal.
How many different discs do you have?
A lot less than I used to have. I think in my bag right now I have 18 or 19.
What did they do?
Yeah, this is going to be foreign for a lot of people, but I have 2 putting putters, so anything I'll use to shoot into the basket, anywhere from 0 to 60 feet. I have an approach disc I have 2 approach discs. One that's like super soft that sticks to the ground and doesn't roll or anything, and I have one that I'm actually taking with me on my Appalachian Trail through hike called the MVP Glitch, because it's a hybrid catch disc that you can like actually like play frisbee with other people and catch it and toss. And then I have a few mid-ranges, one that's super straight, one that's really dumpy and overstable, and one that's super understable. And then fairway drivers, same. Distance drivers, I have a little bit more just because they're fun to throw.
Weight is a big deal on the trail, right?
Yes.
What are you throwing out that you would normally take on a backpacking trail? Normally you'd probably take some stuff if it was like a
beer. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I like to, before I even started the preparation of a through hike, I was pretty minimal. For some reason, I've got like a really weak back, and I've noticed that throughout like my backpacking trips that I just don't carry weight well. So I've been pretty lightweight for a pretty long time now. So
how many pounds do you keep in your pack, or do you try to?
With food and water and all that good stuff, 20 pounds.
That's pretty light.
Yeah.
When I first started backpacking
it was like
in the 90s, it was
50.
like, it was like 50, 60. Like you carried pots and pans in your back.
That makes me cringe right now. I couldn't do it. I mean, I have like a little like camping like kit, but it's like a little like pot, but it only weighs like 3 ounces. So
straight up the side of a mountain.
Oh my goodness.
With 60 pounds in your pack.
Yeah. My first ever backpacking experience, I carried like 40 pounds, and I was like, this is fucking awful. Like, I don't know why anybody would want to do this. And it was just hurting my back. You know, I think I had a cast iron skillet, I'm not gonna lie. And I mean, that thing weighs a pound in itself, and I was just super unprepared for it in that moment, but something drew me back out to get back out there and do it. And I kind of started discovering more lightweight gear, and I've had my kit dialed in for a solid 2 years now.
How much money do you put into your pack?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the lighter that you go, the more expensive it is. But, you know, I mean, you taught me this a long time ago, was buy quality. Don't buy shitty stuff, because you're going to have to upgrade at some point. So I like learned that when I was like 20, 21 years old, and I've just kind of saved up for a lot of like good gear. Like my shelter weighs less than a pound, but yeah, it was very expensive, but I saved up for it for about 9 months. And
I think the problem is like I'm a cheap person myself. The problem is when you try to cheap your way out of something, you end up buying something more expensive later. So then you just buy something twice.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember one time I bought a shitty drum set, and I was like, I'm never, ever going to buy anything shitty again.
It's just better, like long term, to have good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, there are some things that you can get away with being cheap,
Mm-hmm.
like Great Value brand tuna.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of stuff in my kit that's super cheap. Like a lot of my like stuffed sacks are actually like Ziploc baggies.
Yeah.
Super lightweight, super affordable, super cheap, super durable too, honestly, like a freezer bag. But I mean, all the essentials like my backpack, my sleeping pad, my sleeping quilt, my tent, all that stuff. I did put a good amount of money in, but makes me more comfortable when I'm walking. So it makes up for everything.
So why did you decide to do this trip?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had this like grand answer, like I need to change everything in my life. I'm lost or anything, but it's not really like that. I just went through a thing earlier in 2020, like New Year's Eve 2020, where I was just sitting there and I realized how far like I had come in like 12 months. I lived in 4 different places and I had moved states. I had got out of like a serious ass relationship and life just happened so fast. It moved so fast. And I was like, I really want to do this. But before I was like, oh, I'll just do it when I retire. And then kind of I just wised up and got older and like, oh, I don't know if I'll actually be there when I retire. So yeah, I just wanted to do it while I had the opportunity and while before I have children and stuff, because at some point I would like to have a family. And it'd be really irresponsible of me to go on a through hike with children.
Well,
hey honey, I'm going to abandon the children for 6 months and go do this selfish thing for me. Yeah, that'd be awful.
I remember going hiking with a couple, probably in their maybe late 20s. Actually, now that I think about it, and they had a baby in their pack. It was cold out that day.
Yeah,
and I thought, oh, that was so cool of them to take their baby out. And then I saw them again later, and like, oh, that baby got frostbite.
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah.
I never bring a baby out on that.
And suddenly all my admiration for them was like, oh, you can't do this anymore. All right. Favorite hikes of all time.
Favorite hikes of all time. Number 1 by far is the Adirondacks up in New York State. That is such a beautiful mountain range, and so far nothing's ever topped that. Now that was like kind of like backpacking. A hiking trip that I've done was actually in the Grand Canyon when I was living out in Arizona for a little bit. That was really, really awesome. That would probably be in my top 5. Honestly, kind of recency bias, but the Foothills Trail in South Carolina was super awesome. I came across like 12 legit waterfalls that were pretty amazing. And if I had to throw in an Ohio hike, since that's where I'm from, Lake Vesuvius outside Ironton, Ohio is a super awesome hike. And a 5th hike, West Virginia, New River Gorge is pretty beautiful.
I did the whitewater rafting there, but there's trails along the side.
Not many, but they have this one that is like along like the rim of the gorge, and it's really neat. It's really, really pretty in the fall. That's when I went. It was beautiful.
Do you like whitewater rafting?
I've never tried it, but I'd be inclined to do it.
I hate it.
Really?
Yeah. Like people think, oh, you're such an adventurous person. I'm like, yeah, I like certain types of adventure, but
not whitewater rafting.
No.
Would you like rock climbing?
No.
No, I'm not a rock climber.
Well, that's because my hands aren't strong enough.
Oh,
I don't trust myself. I kill myself.
Yeah. I hate rock climbing.
But with whitewater rafting, I learned this after I did it. Well, first of all, I went down with a pretty girl. And I'm like, okay, I'll just hang out while you're whitewater rafting. I don't want to do it. And she told me, all right, that's fine. That's fine. So she went on the whitewater rafting trip, and I'm like, wait, I'm just going to sit here at base camp all day and do nothing? I'm like, all right, I'll just pay the whatever it was, like $70 or whatever it was. I'll go with her. So I got on the whitewater rafting trip, and I hated it every bit as much as I thought I would. And the thing that I found out is that you're like at the mercy, not only of the water, but of all the other people in the raft.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not really good at giving control over to other people.
Yeah.
And as I was on this trip, like, we just didn't really feel all that safe. And the guide, you have a guide on your boat or whatever you call it, on your raft. And he said, you guys want to intentionally flip the boat over? And like half the boat was like, yeah, okay. And the other half was like, no, not really. And he's like, well, be careful, because when we toss it over, you're going to like get sucked in underwater and you might hit a rock. And we're like, wait, what?
Oh my goodness.
And so he's like, let's do it. Let's intentionally flip the boat over. And he did it. And I went underwater, and I was down there for a long time. And I had a life jacket on, so it wasn't like I was like going to drown or anything. But apparently there's like certain things you have to do, like cross your legs and get as tight as possible to get back up to the top. Mm-hmm. And I was down there for a long time, and I finally came back up. I didn't like hit a rock with my head or anything like he warned us that we would. And then we got to the end of the trip, and he said, oh, by the way, the last time I was a guide, somebody died. And this is my first time back. And it was like therapy for him. I'm like, wait, what?
Why would you tell me that?
Yeah, at the end.
Those are like type 2 rapids too. Those are like pretty serious.
I always thought that whitewater rafting was just like trying not to tip over. But this dude's intention was for us to like actually tip over. After we tipped over the first time, he's like, do you guys want to do it again? And everybody was like, no.
And maybe you shouldn't be a whitewater rafting guide.
I'm not, I honestly, to this date, I don't know if like that's things that whitewater rafting guys do, like intentionally tip you over, or.
Not intentionally, you think. Maybe you'd like to like learn, but I mean, if you're going just on a little like cruise or anything, I
thought it was the opposite. I thought like he just didn't want to do that,
Yeah.
It's like if he tipped over, it was like an accident, Not in this guy's case. He completely wanted to. All right. Tell people again where to find you on YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. I imagine Caesar will put it in the link on his podcast, but it's YouTube. Instagram is mainly my only social media. I don't have TikTok or anything like that, but it's Pete Rekieli. It is not Eli in Icelandic. I won't spell it out again. It's very confusing, and I probably should change it, but I'm too attached to it. So YouTube, Instagram, Pete Rekieli. If you are on VSCO, I do some photography stuff on there. Same thing, Pete Rekieli. And thank you for having me on today's podcast episode. I appreciate it.
All right. This was fun.
Yep.
Later.
Bye.
Hey, just real quick. That guy that we were trying to think of his name earlier, it was a YouTube video, and it's called Stephen Fry. That's the guy's name. And the video is called Stephen Fry on American comedy versus British comedy. It's worth a watch.
Thanks for listening to the show. The Great Big Intergalactic can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Apple iTunes, and anywhere else that podcasts can be heard. If social media is your thing, you can follow the program on Facebook or Twitter. If you enjoy the show, upvote, share, like, and subscribe. Whenever and wherever those things can be done. If you'd like to send feedback, the easiest way to do that is to email the show at tgbiuniverse@gmail.com. TGBI as in the Great Big Intergalactic. Or you can leave a voicemail at 216-200-7940. Contributions could include written feedback, audio submissions, voicemails, or potentially even live guests. It was great having you today, and see you next time.